Welcome to Yakima Chief Hops. We're here to talk about a topic which we term as return to grower, also known as RTG. And we have some amazing growers here. Brad, thank you for hosting us here at Carpenter Ranches in Granger, Washington. You guys officially claim Granger?
We claim it.
Awesome. Well, it's just south of Yakima and north of Sunnyside. In case you haven't been here to Granger, I can say that this facility is quite amazing. And this view behind us is very inspiring. So thank you all for taking time out of your harvest. I know you're all on the verge of starting to roll into the 2021 crop. And we wanted to take some time today to talk about the topic of return to grower. It is a model that is rooted in Yakima Chief's mission to connect growers to brewers. Fundamentally, it's a purchasing model, a way to procure hops from growers and bring them to market directly to brewers. And hopefully, through this model of RTG, we're adding a whole bunch of value. And so that's the topic that we're going to discuss today. My name is Ryan Hopkins. I am the CEO of Yakima Chief Hops, and I am incredibly fortunate to sit beside all of you today to talk about this great discussion. So how about just some introductions?
Well, I'll start off on this end. My name is Brad Carpenter, and myself and my brother Craig own Carpenter Ranches and another farm that we call Warrior Ranches. And it's good to be here.
My name's Rick Silve, president of Silve and Son Farms, one of the grower owner families of Yakima Chief.
And I'm Graham Gamache. I own Cornerstone Ranches, and it's an honor to be here today. Thanks to YCH and Ryan for inviting me.
So my name's Kevin Reel. I'm the president of Double R Hop Ranches that I own with various family members. I'm one of the grower owners of Yakima Chief also.
Excellent. Well, to get things kind of rolling in our discussion, what is the thing you're most looking forward to for harvest?
Well, I would say as a hop grower, you're always looking forward to get started. And about midway, you're always looking forward to finish. So that's kind of sums it up for us. So.
Starting and finishing. I think empty hop yards are always a nice thing to see soon.
But getting started in a harvest is always a good point because there's been so much work and effort put in. Challenges this year in particular has had numerous challenges to it. So it's been very much looking forward to getting the harvest started and seeing the quality of the product coming off. We're cautiously optimistic that things look very good at this point.
I would agree. Definitely getting started and getting that handle on what the quality of the crop is. And we have some new personnel in some key positions and getting them rolling and just getting that momentum going. I'm looking forward to getting that started.
I'd talk a little bit about the smells and feels of hop harvest. And I know all of us here have grown up on hop farms, and they're multi-generational. And I can go back to my earliest years as a young boy, and that smell of going to visit my father or my grandfathers at the picking machines or in the kilns. Those memories come back to you in an instant on the very first day of hop harvest when you start to smell, the aroma of the hops and all that activity starts.
Yeah. And those smells kind of come with you home too. As I remember Mom washing the clothes and it would be green, and those smells stick around for a while too.
But some of those varieties make for some really nice smells at home, and some of them, it's just a little bit on the edge.
I agree, Kevin.
I think there's that moment when you stand in the kiln and it's that first field that you just hit peak ripe and everything, the bed's laid perfectly, and there's always that magic moment, and that's a comforting thing. So I'm looking forward to that. There's just a lot of anxiety before harvest start. So I'm looking forward to calming down.
Exactly. It's almost like you calm down when you get started. Once the activity
I'm not
starts.
sure that happens right away for me. It might be 40 some days from now I'll calm down.
Well, good deal. Well, we have a good chance to take a little pause on all that preparation. Again, great thanks for all of you taking time out of your day to have this discussion. I think for me, not growing up on a family farm, but being connected with so many of your families here in the Yakima Valley, it truly is inspiring what family farms do to bring a crop to market. For me, I've been in the sales and marketing side of Yakima Chief Hops for about 8 years. And I can say it is incredibly rewarding for my harvest experience to bring someone who's never seen a harvest. You know, maybe they saw farms on TV, maybe they read about something in their lives, but when they come to a farm and they see all of the effort that it takes to cut bines in the field, bring them to the picker does its work and lay them in a kiln, there's this, affirmation type of experience for so many of our customers, our brewers, our beer consumers, that is really meaningful. So thanks for taking the time today to talk about what we do, and that is the role of Yakima Chief Hops, is to make that connection with brewers. I would say that our brewers are also familiar with that sense of going to work, the smells and sensations of doing their work. They also put a lot of passion into what they do in order to take raw materials and bring it into a glass of beer. So it makes a lot of sense of what we're trying to do at Yakima Chief Hops. And for the past 34 years, this model was developed, Brad, by your family, the Peralts, as well as the Smiths, to say we can do this different. So maybe talk a little bit about the origins of how the business was started, how this return to grower idea was begun.
Yeah. And Rick was involved in a lot of that on the front end too, and actually the developing that return to grower model based off of sales that were not traditional sales of a buy-sell agreement with a dealer. And I'm going to defer a little bit to Rick, and he can discuss some of that because some of the committees that he serves on at Yakima Chief deal with that regularly. But it was a concept to bring in our hops and try to get the best quality into the barn, and then make sure that you're getting a price that is going to return value back to the farm, to the families, to reinvest in their facilities in order to maximize the quality and efficiencies at the farm level. And it brings a level of value across the full system, not only at the farm level, but into the processing part of it, Yakima Chief, into sales, and into the brewer's hands. So that was a concept we saw, and we just needed to act upon it. And Rick, I'll let you kind of explain the mechanics of what that, the payments and how that's done, and the contracts with the brewers, how that flows back into the growers' hands. And we think we've created a model that is very valuable in the industry. And then some of us here are not Yakima Chief owners, like Graham, and he can express his feelings regarding that. So,
Yeah, it goes to that when we started this and doing it kind of on a pooling tendency and doing it that way, trying to maximize the return back to the grower. And really the upside of it was it changed the whole model on how the industry was doing it previous, which was based just on a strictly contract payment method. And what, to Brad's point, when we tried to maximize the return back to the grower, and the biggest part of it was just establishing relationships and information flow to the end users, and meeting and bringing brewers in and educating them on the process of growing the hops, and as well to Ryan's point when he stated that building those relationships has been the biggest point of doing this new model, if you will. It's been a long process to get it to the point where it's at now. But when you educate and share information back and forth from the brewers to the grower, it's a lot easier to build a model that justifies an RTG that allows, as Brad said, reinvestment back into the farm. There was a long stretch there when a lot of us did it the old way that there wasn't a lot of margin left to do that, and it made it hard to continue another generation of farmers coming back and continuing on. It also made it hard to reinvest in equipment to allow you to even make a quality product. So from start to finish, it's been a whole change in model on not just the return on a dollar value, but an educational process from the brewers to the growers as well. We learned a lot as growers on what the brewers need on their end to make their product the best it can be. And then on the same time, as Ryan was saying, I don't know how many times I've had brewers come out in that phrase at harvest time of, I had no idea that this is what went into making hop products. I had no idea. And the amount of investment that everybody around here makes for just that 30 to 40 day window, it's really pretty amazing.
Well, let me speak a little bit to the history prior to our ability to put investment in our facilities. I can remember 20 years ago, we'd shut the machine down and we'd walk away from that stationary hop harvester for, you use it 40 days out of the year. And then we would come back a week prior and get the baling wire out and just try to mend it, put it back together as cheap as possible to try to get your crop off again, because we did not have the resources to invest into equipment that was much needed. So we were, I think the last time we had put an investment in our machine prior to that time was probably 1969. So speaking to the value that it brings to the whole process, it's unbelievable the value that has allowed us to put into our facilities. I think you guys have put in new facilities recently or added to what you're doing. So Graham, where are you at on that?
Our main investment in the last 7 years have been in the kilns, just so that's not our bottleneck anymore, and we can continue to expand. We have yet to address the picker. Cornerstone Ranch is famous for its old Fontaine all-wood picker.
It's a cool picker.
Yeah, thank you. It picks a lot of hops. It does a really good job. Very proud of that machine. But the RTG model on we're a heavily diversified ranch. I'm like one of the lone guys here or the only guy here that isn't a YCH owner. So I would speak to the fact that I think one of the reasons I'm sitting here today is because of the fact that we are a heavily diversified ranch in our sales book, and everybody that's part of our gets the privilege, I think, to take part in our quality of product is because they've earned a place at the table. And YCH started with a small place in 2013. My father and my uncle, we didn't work with YCH as much. And when I took over, I was pretty eager to jump into the offer with Simcoe. And that was a new variety at the time that definitely new on my farm. And slowly the program has just expanded, for two reasons. Obviously, monetarily, the returns have been very favorable, and it has allowed us to reinvest into the farm and continue. But also, as you guys intimated, lifting that veil between the brewer and the hop farm has been profound, I would say. There was something that went on in 2012, 2013, 2014 with the focus on craft brewing, and whether us hop farmers were ready for it or not, and whether the merchants were ready for it or not, the brewers were coming to check out where their product was coming from. And I think the Return to Grower program, as shepherded or established by YCH, really helped shepherd that in a controlled manner, and continues to do so. And it's added a lot of meaning to the farming. I mean, we've been doing it for my bloodline for around 100 years, and there's been a lot of down years. Not the last 7 to 10 have been pretty good, but there's a reason you got to get up every morning, and when the market starts to dip again, which it will, because it's just an economic structure, knowing that there's that connection, and I think is something that'll help get us out of bed in the morning. So anyway, that's the reason why YCH is such a big part of Cornerstone Ranches now.
I'd tack on to that connection between growers and brewers. I mean, that's what attracted my family to YCH. We're some of the newer owners of the company, and we were really attracted to the connection that Graham just described, and we saw that as being very, very unique to YCH. Not that it does not exist in other marketing opportunities, but it is front and center at YCH. It is the cornerstone of what makes YCH what it is. And I go back to, this is a whole value chain proposition, from growing the hops, processing, storage, marketing, so on and so forth. And each one of those parts of the chain or the proposition needs to have the appropriate return so that it can continue to grow and have investment in it. And that's from the grower end clear on down through to the sales end. And that's what my family sees in YCH. We see those returns flowing back to those various parts of the value chain to get a product that isn't exactly like it was when it came out of my field, but needs some further processing, storage, marketing and such before it gets to the end user. And we see the returns flow properly there. I spent pretty much most of my career dealing with agricultural cooperatives, either, supply side cooperatives or marketing cooperatives or even finance cooperatives. And YCH feels a lot like that. And that's, why cooperatives were really invented over centuries ago, to provide adequate and proper returns back to the different segments of any market. We just see that and feel that with YCH. It's important to us as a family.
Back to some specifics on what RTG is. There are different ways to purchase things throughout agriculture. Kevin, you had mentioned that a little bit. Yakima Chief Hops, I was not around at the time. Your families were starting this. The intent really was to try to capture as much value in any type of the supply chain, all the way from the farm to the brewer, from any type of commercial transaction, and return the largest majority of that back to the grower. And that is the foundation of how Yakima Chief commercially works. We have a set margin that allows us to process things, receive things, market them, and sell them. And that set margin is set, established, agreed upon. It's reviewed annually. In my 8 years, it's been adjusted twice, which is pretty amazing considering the amount of inflation and cost throughout the supply chain. But it's in the best interest of Yakima Chief Hops to make sure that there is a reliable supply chain. And our philosophy is, if we return the largest majority of that value back to the grower, which is the core of that supply chain, then we will have success long into the future. So Yakima Chief Hops is owned 100% by growers, 100% by hop growers, and that is why we have this model, is that we believe if the majority of all of our revenue can go back to the family farms, whether they're owners or non-owners, that we'll have success long into the future. Some things to just kind of set the table on our model, Yakima Chief Hops model, is that right now 50% of our hops come from owners and 50% of our hops come from non-owners. And our model treats and views all of those families as the same. Payments are the same. You had mentioned the pools. Those aren't swimming pools. Sometimes they are. But the pools, I guess, would anybody be interested in describing how the pools work from your perspective?
I can give a rough, take a stab at it anyway. So each very broad look at it is every variety that is delivered into Yakima Chief falls into a varietal pool. So you'll have a Simcoe pool, you'll have a Citra pool, and so forth for every variety. And each one of those varieties will have a certain amount of it that has been contracted up to the harvest time. And then there's a certain amount of it based on how those contracting programs went. There might be some left over that are available to be bought on a spot basis after harvest. And so the reason that one of the reasons we do this system now of pooling is we stagger the payments out to the growers from the time that they bring the crop into YCH. Their payments will be staggered basically quarterly over the following year. And what that does is it gives the grower some upside to realize what the market is. If it continues like it has over the past 7, 8 to 10 years, the part that wasn't contracted going into harvest gives you some upside pricing that can fall back to the grower based on what Ryan was saying, is that since YCH isn't taking a position on the hops, if the market continues to trend up, that RTG will increase as the payments are made over the following year. So that maximizes the return. And what that does is it's offset because the grower isn't getting his full payments, obviously, for a year. So there has to be enough upside to stagger those payments out, and it's done by increased pricing, hopefully, as we go out on the payments. There's also some risks there, and we just went through this. The 2019 crop is a great example. A little thing called COVID came along. After we brought the crop in, got it processed, we were ready to start shipping it out the door, and all of this came along. We're all very well aware of that. And so even though there's some upside, if the market continues to trend upward, that's a great example of how a market got stagnated and regressed for reasons that were outside of anybody's control. But then we saw payments actually go down in that year. And so that's it's very transparent that way. When things are good, it flows back to the grower. When things go negatively, the grower feels some pain on that. And so that's, I don't know if anybody wants to kind of jump on that as well, but that's a nutshell of how it works.
I'd tack onto that, because I think the important part about that is not just the upside to the grower, but is the feedback mechanism to the grower, right? So I'm going to use an extreme example here, but if I decided today that I wanted Yakima Chief to market Betamax tapes that I'm going to produce, and I rammed those down Yakima Chief's throat.
What's a Betamax tape?
See, only the young guys in the room don't know. The rest of us do. But nice save. But if I try to do something like that and force a variety or a market, Betamax tapes, down your throat that you can't market, I'm going to see the effects of that. It's going to flow back to me in a negative way, which it should, right? I don't think anybody wants a Betamax tape anymore, or whatever hop variety is that is not desired anymore. And so that feedback mechanism is important, both on the upside and, quite frankly, when it's not good too. Because I get that message quite firmly and frankly that way.
My wedding was filmed on a Betamax tape.
See, I'm a little behind.
I need to find a Betamax machine to show me what I looked like back then. 1985, by the way. But no, I agree with everybody. You know, one thing we're missing here is that's key to this is the value and effort of Yakima Chief Hops on the processing and marketing end, because we see transparently, you can see through to the brewer, back to the grower, which is exactly what we want as growers and owners, whether you're just a grower or a grower owner. We all need to have that visibility into the market and to see what we're doing. Like Kevin said, if you're producing a variety that may not have the quality parameters that brewers are looking for, or maybe a variety that doesn't fit into their brewing program, we need to see that a year or two ahead so we can make an adjustments on the grower end. And that transparency into that process really helps. And the RTG process, that model helps us be able to make those adjustments accordingly. And one thing that we love seeing at Yakima Chief Hops is the teamwork, the ability to innovate and bringing new products to the market, and the ability to push into markets that are going to help growers. Because if we have maybe Grandma's growing 100 acres of a certain variety and he's the only one growing that variety, that puts at risk that variety out into the market. But if all of us are sharing in that risk on 25 acres each, then it spreads the risk a little bit more, and it actually gives quality parameters that you can adjust to. Maybe you guys can add to that a little bit, but I feel like quality is a very integral part of what we're doing as a grower and a Yakima Chief. And the RTG that comes back to the grower that helps us to incorporate not only your facilities, which are important, but the teamwork. We've got great teams working on our family farms, and our employees are very valuable. And they have families that have dreams, and you know, so what we're doing here with our connection to the brewers has ramifications unbelievably here in the Yakima Valley and in Oregon and Idaho as well. So it's something we can be proud of, but it's something we always have to work hard at, developing quality products, innovation, and teamwork on our farm level and at the Yakima Chief level to bring that that level of service and quality to you, the brewers.
Yeah, that transparency and trust in the supply chain is critical. I strongly believe that this program wouldn't work if there wasn't access to information, if there wasn't transparency, all the way from the brewer down to the grower. So Graham, maybe you can speak a little bit about the importance of that transparency in our supply chain and how that adds value to their return to grower program.
Oh, I think in terms of quality, that transparency is, it's more than what we're just talking about, just the words in this discussion, but you guys have demonstrated it just through the investment that you've made in informational platforms, as far as the grower's ability to almost real time get online and look on my portal and see how my lots were received. And as they are on the table and brewers are getting the opportunity to rub and sniff them to see what they're thinking, and be able to see if I'm, still adhering to a consistency of quality, namely, the pick dates, that my pick dates are matching what they should be doing, and it's actually been a very integral part of how I plan to harvest my crop and how I raise my crop. Transparency on the marketing side, just as far as how the money flows into my particular farm, it's a good thing. It's definitely, the RTG model is definitely different than the traditional model. Like you said, the quarterly payments, which it's a good thing to have cash flow throughout the year, although it can make it a little difficult to budget sometimes. Mm-hmm. On these high return varieties, this model is fantastic because usually ends up being a lot better than I planned out or budgeted. But sometimes some of the public varieties that are openly played with all growers and all different merchants, there's not as much transparency as far as how much volume is going to be out there and how much demand. There's a little less control, and that's where you can get hurt with that last check. I don't know if hurt's the right word, but sometimes it returns a little less than expectation, which can make it, you mentioned the word risk, Brad, and it does, although the risk is distributed amongst all the growers that are contributing in the pool, there is more risk that's pushed down onto the grower through this system, where with the more traditional buy and sell contracts where you're paid in November and you're paid in March and you know exactly what you're going to get paid because you know exactly what you delivered. That can, that's why I'm diversified at Cornerstone Ranches. I got a little bit of each. And certainly in the last 10 years, YCH has been very advantageous to be part of that program. That's why we continue to deliver more and invest more. But like I said earlier, and like everybody keeps bringing up, it's not just cash flow. The transparency is huge. And the ability to use these tools to improve myself and the ranch as a grower and quality is tremendous.
Great. Yeah, that emphasis on quality could only happen if there's actual value going back to the farms. And that is part of this model, is we strongly believe if that small margin in the middle for Yakima Chief hops, if we can be held accountable to the best use of that, which I can say we've done a great job. Our processing, our innovations, our products, and some of that is based upon the old thought process, Brad, like you said, because we're grower-owned, we're going to do it in an efficient and a very mindful manner by which we use the dollars in the system effectively. And we've been successful in that. It's rooted in our mission, vision, and values, which the RTG is a part of that. We know what we're going to get as a margin, and it's our job to make sure that we're adding as much value through the supply chain. On the farm, we can have the greatest quality as possible, but if you bring it in and you process it incorrectly or improperly or too long, then that quality is lost. So there is shared risk in this model, there's no doubt about it. There's also shared reward. And I would be really remiss, I'm actually it's unfortunate, and I'd be interested to hear, because this is going to go out on YouTube and different platforms, but I would encourage the conversation from the brewing community on what this model means, what the return to grower actually means when they're choosing where to buy their hops from. Because I see it as being, over the last 10 years, really allowing things to progress from a quality standpoint when the majority of that return goes back to the farm. And I see that being really exciting because then there's better beer out there in the world, and more beer consumers are saying, I want to buy that beer because the quality of that beer is so much stronger. So that's something to think about. There are other models out there that it's more on a buy-sell, and don't want to be critical of those models because there are benefits to those. But as a grower-owned company that is here to promote family farms, maybe Kevin, you could speak to a little bit about what the difference in those two models are,
Sure.
and how that impacts things.
Yeah, even though my family's a grower-owner, I would also describe myself, as Graham does, as having a pretty broad spectrum book of business in how we market our hops. So we do participate in quite upfront, frankly, many of the different models. And there are various risks and rewards with all of them. Some of you may know that I've spent the last better part of a couple decades involved in agricultural finance. And one of the things that I've learned through that experience is, with more risk requires more reward, or a basic economic model will break down. And that's what I tend to see here. As Graham pointed out, there is more risk placed on the grower with this model. But in the end, and we've found this to be the case, there is more reward too. So some of the more traditional models with a hard contract on a piece of paper, you can take that to the bank and say, here's what I'm going to get if I produce my product. That hard number doesn't exist with this model. So there is a little bit more risk there. And so obviously to compensate for that, there needs to be a little bit more reward. I personally like a little bit of balance in my family's portfolio, but I also love the connection that I see between that risk and reward, and when I do a really good job, I get rewarded for that. And so it's a balance. I think it's an appropriate balance. I also feel like, from my view into the company on the YCH processing, and that the money that has gone to those endeavors is appropriately rewarded and is invested extremely well. And I've actually, had the opportunity to be involved in some of the planning for some of these projects, and I've been very, very impressed with how much thought goes into that. Things just don't happen haphazardly. There's a lot of thought and discussion that goes into a new product line or a new piece of equipment for downstream products and such, and that makes me feel really good as a grower owner and as a producer that markets hops through YCH.
Excellent. Brad, RTG, what does it mean to your family farm?
Well, I was telling Kevin when he walked in, he's a really tough grower, but I think it's, our family, Graham and Kevin's families are more balanced in their portfolio of contracts and dealers and whatnot. But our families kind of dove headfirst into this idea of having that visibility all the way through, with the ability to have some ownership and decision making at the YCH level, at the breeding level, at the farm level. And so that vertically integrated approach may not be for everybody because there's a lot of risk involved with that. But I think Yakima Chief Hops has been blessed to have great teams and an evolution of learning process over the last 10 years with this craft market influx of need for flavorful hops, that we've evolved into a company that is always trying to get better at what we do. Always to have that transparency has been a big word we've talked about here, and always have that so that we understand and learn, how can we get better? We don't want to rest on any of our laurels. My dad once said on a video, don't get a big head. And I listen to him because he's got a pretty big head on him, but he doesn't have a big head, if you know what I mean. But I think our full participation in this process of RTG is really the foundation of creating an atmosphere on the farm level to where my kids, my nephews, my family, our employees are all keyed into that value proposition. What do we do to get better at what we're doing? And every year I've seen evolution of us getting better at it. Yeah, sometimes you might have a field that fell apart once in a while, but you learn from those issues and mistakes, and you get better at it. But there's a feeling and a general idea that there's a future. There's a future in hop farming where I didn't have that when I was a young man. I mean, we had to plant apples, cherries, apricots, grapes, everything we can get to, and it would be a plethora of things that you're doing that you're not doing any of them really well. You're just trying to find something that's going to help you survive. Whereas this attitude we're seeing now is more of a long-term approach to farming that would have value that could be transferred down to the next generation, that if they have the resources and the wherewithal to have that improvement attitude, they can continue that business and bring flavor to not only the beer industry, but we believe other industries in the future as well.
Yeah, that's a great point what you're going on there, because like you said, since growers are owners of the company and involved in every step, everything from the planning, there's countless hours that are spent as soon as the last bale's made, we're already planning for the next crop. And growers having input, the sales staff coming in and saying, hey, this is where we think we need to be on each of these varieties, and having some collaboration on that and grower involvement. And then that way it's an easier conversation when the staff goes out and talks to Brad or Graham or Kevin and say, hey, I need you to hit the brake a little bit on this variety. I need you to hit the accelerator on this one and go. And you keep trying to find that balance of not wanting to short a market, not wanting to overdo it, and just kind of move in the middle there. And it gives you a lot of flexibility knowing that you can do that. And to what you were saying, Brad, for the next generation and the investments you have to make, and a lot of these farms have made incremental growth, and then you hit a point where you're completely maxed out and you need to make another jump, which is another harvest facility, which you don't do that to plant 50 acres or 100 acres. I mean, you need to do 500-600 acres. So there's a big jump, a huge investment on the farm level, and being involved and having a little over the horizon look at what the future looks like. That investment's a lot easier to make when you have that information and you have the family involved in it, and it gives you a lot longer look at things. And I think everybody around here would say nobody's in this. Well, all of our families have been in it for almost a century now, or more, excuse me. Yeah. And so that type of investment's a lot easier to make when you have that collaborative effort into everything. So.
Yeah, and I would tack onto that. I've been very impressed over the last 2 to 3 years as I had a better view into that process and how equitable that really is throughout the company. And, Ryan said it earlier on, we treat grower owners and outside growers the same. And I've watched that time and time again. And through the ownership group even, there's so much equitability in that process and input that flows into it. And to be honest with you, that was one of my fears as a family, our family as being a potential new owner. I've been very, very pleased with how I've seen that process work, Rick, that you just described as, we put the last bale in the warehouse and we start planning for the next year and how this all happens. Quite equitable, and I feel like the process that we have at YCH is a really good job of it myself.
Well, I would say is for somebody that's not a grower owner and sitting on the outside, that other 50% that you talked about earlier, that when there was an opportunity to buy into YCH and quite a few farms, Kevin took that opportunity. I was a little concerned that maybe as an outside entity that I might lose some opportunity at YCH, and that has not materialized at all, but we'll see. There's still, keep proving it to me. keep bringing the opportunities to my office, because I definitely.
That machine of yours keeps kicking out great hops.
Yeah. So we definitely want to keep delivering more and having more opportunities. So I think that from what I can see from the outside, which should mean a lot to the viewers here, because this is truly a non-owner opinion, literally, is it is fair and equitable from what I can see. So I'm proud to be still at the table, sitting here today. It's a big deal. Yeah.
Well, that's an amazing thing from my desk as someone who is not from a multi-generational family farm, someone who is deeply passionate about agriculture and about farms. I continually say that farmers, and specifically in our niche market of hops, there's a lot of challenges. And the more that we can work together and the more that we can support all hop growers, whether they're owners or non-owners, whether they're from Oregon or Idaho or Michigan or wherever these hop growers are growing hops, if we can work together, there's going to be sustainable success. And that's something that drives me, that excites me, because there's a lot of challenges to being a farmer these days. And that's something that I think the return to grower model does add a lot of value directly back to the farms. And I hope that all the viewers can kind of see that and hear it. Another observation is that the hop industry still has a lot of that kind of skepticism. And I've had a lot of people say, after 34 years, Ryan, Yakima Chief they've proven to me that you're going to continue to do right by me. So that's something to celebrate. I think every year we wake up and we do our work in order to create that transparency. And that's not just on the grower side, that's on the brewer side, and that's with our staff side. We talk a lot about that triangle and keeping that triangle of employees, brewers, and growers in balance. And the return to grower model would not happen if there wasn't that trust and transparency. You enter your hops into this pool, you have a projected payment that you're going to get quarterly, and along the way it's either going to go up or go down. I think we would be remiss without saying that our brewers play a huge part in that. And our brewers giving us clear indications in the forms of future contracts will allow us to maneuver and to make sure that we can bring the top quality product to market. That is key. That's the other people who should be at this table. I'm honored to be here as an employee, a staff member of the supply chain, but the other brewing community really needs to, I think, hold some responsibility in this dialogue and be a part of it. And it's one thing I'm proud that Yakima Chief does really well. When we set contracts with brewers, I consider them family like this family here. And if we can have longer conversations and clear confidence and trust, we're going to do great things. So that's another leg of this return to grower, or really tough grower. I like that.
I think you can't overemphasize that part of the partnership enough, right? That feedback from the brewing community into the organization, into us as growers, is so key. No matter what model you're talking about, but especially for this model, it is very, very important. Most people know, we don't operate widget factories, right? And so a brewer can't come to us tomorrow and say, gee, I need more widgets, can you just spool that thing up tomorrow? These are yearly crops, and some of them really, quite honestly, take a 2-year period just to really get into decent production, if not longer, if it's a brand new variety. And so that communication is really key to keep this even and balanced and functioning in the future.
Yeah, and I think the communication through the COVID process has been, it's probably, I'm surprised you still got your hair on your head. I would have tore it all out by now, but I know that it's created a lot of communication was needed in order to get through that process. So that is very appreciative. We think there's a little more flexibility in the RTG process at the grower and our processor in at Yakima Chief Hops, to where we can massage a little bit one direction or the other direction in order to accommodate a return to the grower that's going to be valuable. And we've got a lot of, recently there's a lot of costs. Costs are going up on the brewer and costs are going up on the growing end as well. With the economy and the COVID shutdowns on some key industries, it's kept us from we've had to have a little buffer there in order to survive that process, just as brewers have as well. So again, I don't think as a grower I want to just put a product out there like Kevin alluded to earlier and just say, hey, take this and pay this for it. I want to know what they want, what impact is having on their customer, so that we can create flavor value that is going to have a desire to come back to us for more of that. And part of that is just taking care of the hops in a better way and generating new innovative products and varieties that will speak to flavor and quality in the future. And that's a great connection to have. It really is.
Rick, how often do you get to look at your grower portal, and how does that impact your decisions on the farm?
I wish I had my son here with me because he obsesses on that portal. And it's amazing how that has changed in a short period of time because the information we get back from Yakima Chief, you deliver bales in, they pull the samples out immediately. It's going in for sensory, it's going in for selection if selection is going on, and you're getting daily updates on your portal, individual lots that you've delivered in of all the varieties, and that feedback to me is extremely valuable. We look at it each after harvest, and we've made tweaks to harvest schedules, we've made tweaks to growing schedules on how we grow them based on the feedback we get. The brewer comments are fantastic. You'll have some that might have 3 or 4 or more, of brewers that have tried a particular lot, and I love it because sometimes you'll get one that loves it and says, "This is the best lot I ever had. I want to take the whole lot." Mm-hmm. And the guy right next to him, "Man, that's the worst thing I smelled all day." And that's what I love. The diversity of the growers that you have within the ownership, the diversity of the brewers that are sampling the products and trying to find the best use in their product to give themselves the quality product for their customer. That's what I love about it. And you never used to get that individual feedback. So when we see that now, that portal is one of the greatest things that we've come up with, just because of how quick you can get that feedback and also use it for planning purposes for the following crop.
Sometimes it's just a matter of hours. Even.
It
is incredibly quick at times.
And it keeps getting better and better, but that's great feedback that we can all use, and I'm sure we all are using it that way. So,
excellent.
Yeah.
Well, I like how the feedback goes both ways as well. It's very comforting as a grower to know that the brewers that are coming here for selection, and I suppose back in 2020 when you were sending selection out, which but hats off to you, that must have been a hell of a challenge. That they're getting a sense of the challenges that we face as growers as well. I think it lifts the veil on both ends and adds the personality to what the hops truly are. They're not just a commodity. It's something that has personality crop year to crop year, even if you are picking it on the exact same date and you're training it on the same date. The crop year, the different environmental influences are going to change the character of the hop, and brewers that understand that, it's good to know they're understanding that so they stick with the program, because it can't be a gold standard year every single year. Sometimes it's there's a lot of challenges. So I think that that transparency goes both ways.
Well, excellent. We are you guys are getting ready to harvest the 2021 crop. Are there any parting words that you want to throw out there to the world about the 2021 crop?
Well, I would say the word mystery.
Is that a new hop variety?
Right.
It should be. If it's not, it should be.
I mean, we've had windstorms thrown at us. We've had smoke from forest fires thrown at us. We've had, labor shortages. And so we've got one time period to get it right. We're not brewing something every week. So like these guys have mentioned, all of them, there's some anxiety that goes up, but there's also a deep satisfaction and joy of getting a crop off. So we're looking forward to get started, and it's an exciting time of the year, and there's a lot of rapport that goes on amongst us as growers, and there's a lot of connections that are made with new employees and employees that have been with us for years and years. So we consider them all family. We consider the Yakima Chief people family and our fellow growers. And so it's a special time of year, and we're going to get started here pretty quick.
Yeah, I would agree. We are cautiously optimistic. To Brad's point there was challenges every year. There's challenges. This year in particular, we had some record-breaking heat temperatures we've never seen before in the valley here. Some varieties were impacted worse than others. It's yet to be seen exactly what that looks like. But we are cautiously optimistic that we're going to have a nice crop come in. Quality appears to be very nice. I think we're going to be very pleasantly surprised on the quality of the product coming in this year. And I think when it's all said and done, I think the volumes are going to end up being pretty close to what we forecasted. I think we'll be right in the ballpark there. But as everybody has said, you've heard the word quality around here 100 times already. We strive to give you the best quality product at the farm level. I know Ryan and his staff strives to give you the best quality product through the processing, the storage, logistics, and getting it out there. And our end goal is every time, whether one of your customers sees a Yakima Chief box in the brewery there, or you have a friend that stops by or another brewer, you just want to know when they see a Yakima Chief box sitting there that they know that that's the top, that brewer made the investment in buying the best quality product out there. And that's what all of us are striving for every year.
I would part with, just echo what Rick and Brad said. I'm eager to get started to see what kind of quality is in there. I think it could be an above average crop, actually, yield wise. There's some intimation of delayed maturity at this front end that it'll be exciting to see how that pans out. Hops have a way of correcting themselves very quickly as these day lengths start getting shorter and shorter and the nights get cooler. So that's, being someone who's been around hops his entire life, it's really fun to see how this plant reacts to different environmental factors. So I'm excited to watch the ripening curve and ride that ripening curve. But like Brad talked about with family, we all live and work with these guys that are working on our farms on a daily basis, and everybody brings out their best during hop harvest, and people have their struggles that you get to see, family struggles or alcohol struggles or whatever they're dealing with, and just to see them all lay it aside and actually bring the crop in 7 days a week. Most of our farms are I think all of our farms are 24/7. It's hardcore. I don't know unless these brewers are coming to see it, we put on our clean clothes to be, and big smiles to meet you when you come. You don't see what we look like when you turn around and get back in the van. It's a long deal. But I plan on doing it for a long time. And I love to see what it brings out in all of us and in employees. So I'm looking forward to getting that started as well.
Yeah, Graham, you make me think of comments that my wife always makes to me during harvest, and it's a long, hard 40-some days, and you get extremely tired, and it is the most stressful time of the year. However, she always tells me when brewers come to visit, which they do most days on our farm, she says, you come home in so much of a better mood because, the energy that our customers bring to the farm when they come in, they don't see it as day 35 of every day feeling like Monday, like it does for us. And they bring that energy, and you can't help but absorb some of that, right? And then I get to take it home at night, which is great. So I do look forward to that. And I think we have potentially one of the best quality crops I've seen in a long, long time. I think the yields are going to be up and down depending on the variety, but I think overall it's going to be, we'll be right there. We'll be okay.
Great. Well, thank you all. Sincere thanks to each and every one of you for sitting here today. And for those of you who zoom into this or watch it on YouTube or whatever channel you, maybe a Betamax tape.
Yeah,
we'll have to print this on Betamax.
What we really need to do is convert your wedding video to an electronic format for you as a present to this. Yeah,
we'll find some bloopers from Brad's. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Better not.
But hopefully,
Actually, let's not.
hopefully all of you viewing this learned a little something about Return to Grower, learned more about Yakima Chief Hops and our interest in providing the most value to the entire supply chain, not only to hop growers, to brewers, and to our employees. That's really important to us. And as we embark upon the crop year 2021, I hope all of you a very, very safe harvest, and of course the highest quality and the highest yields. We'll all be more intelligent when we get past this harvest.
Thank you, Ryan.
Right.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.